happy to be here. So I speak on what is called age and voting choice. This is a paper which I have been writing for maybe a couple of years now, and hopefully it's getting into some sort of shape here. The issue is this, that of the many variables that people look at when they study elections in India, one of the variables is age, and unlike other variables like whether it's caste, whether it's income, gender, or even location, age has not got systematic attention in the literature on electoral politics in India. Yet I thought we would have a PowerPoint, but we don't have it here, unfortunately. But if you look at the census 2011 and you look at the age pyramid that is there, the people born post 1986 constitute the bulk of India's population, and 40% of India's population is under 20. And the first people who voted in the first election in India are less than 1% of India's population. Now, why I am saying this is important, because simultaneously we have both life expectancy going up and a decline in birth rates. So over a period of time, what we are going to see is that new cohorts which have been just born are likely to live for longer periods of time, and they are likely to actually become a higher proportion of the population in the near future. So, and in spite of this sort of generational turnover taking place, there is not much attention in India on the relationship between age and voting patterns. So I think looking at age is therefore important. And my question that I want to look at in this particular paper is that, do diverse age groups in India have distinctive political choices? And if they have distinctive political choices, what is the reason for this? And my hypothesis is that this is because of a long-term generational divergence that is taking place. Okay? Now, most studies of elections in India have been usually one-shot elections. If you study 2014, you forget it, then go on to the next election that comes up. Now, while this is very useful to explain voting behavior in a single election, I don't think we can study age by looking at one particular election. So what I will do is I'll look at a couple of elections since 1996 to look at how age matters. Now, when you look at the literature on age, and you find actually four competing hypotheses are there. The first hypothesis, what is called the lifelong persistence hypothesis, which argues that what happens at the early period of socialization is going to continue throughout your life. Okay, so what happens within those impressionable years, that years keep varying, but that will affect you for the rest of your life. The second hypothesis, which is opposite of that, is called the lifelong openness hypothesis, which says that there is no stability and you constantly pick up ideas through your life, and so there is no one particular idea that is going to stick on to you through your life. The third hypothesis, which is a middle position between the open hypothesis and the persistence hypothesis, which basically talks of a life cycle hypothesis, which is a middle position, which says that actually both the other two are not very true. There are some attitudes which continue and some attitudes which will change. The fourth hypothesis, and this is the hypothesis that I use for this study, is the generational model, which is again a middle portion between the persistence and the open hypothesis, but it leans towards the persistence. Basically, the generational model argues that the formative experiences that human beings have, the social and political experiences, have an influence on people's lives subsequently. Okay? But what the generational hypothesis basically says is that since different generations have different experiences, how they look at the same event will vary. So, a generation which saw independence will look at, say, today's demonetization very differently from, say, a generation which was born, let's say, during the emergency. So, you will see the same event but with different lens because they come from different generations. Now, the advantage of a generational model compared to, say, all other studies which look at variable system is that it takes into account both individual change. For example, age is an individual change that happens to me, like I grow older every year. It combines it with social change, whereas other variables don't look at it like that. Like whether you take caste or whether you take income or this thing, it's not looked at as individual, but it's looked at as a collective listing. So generational model both looks at the relationship between individual change and social change. Now all age hypotheses have one thing in common, that they say that the formative years have an impact on individual's life, and individuals' political behavior, and in my case I'm saying party choices, are influenced by what happens in that impressionable period in human beings' life. Okay? And I also assume that beyond that impressionable age, attitudes change very slowly and they are very incremental. So, and the assumption here is that when events happen when we are young, we are more strongly affected by those events compared to the older people. Okay? So old cohorts, I said, will view events with different lenses compared to the young one. So the same events that happen in contemporary India could have different meanings for different people born in different generations. Now when I use the word political generation, I basically want to say that of a particular age cohort born within a historical and social time. You don't have the advantage of a table here, but I'll just explain what I mean. So I believe that those born during a particular historical, social and social time share certain experiences that differentiate them from others. Because all of us can be only at a particular point you are going to reach that. Okay, it's like a stream of running water. At only one point you can put your hand into it. The next time you put it, it's a different water that is flowing. So different generations are there at particular points of time, and how those events impact them vary from generation to generation. Now, my generations are like this. I'll quickly go through how I have defined my generations. Is that I have 4 generations. One is pre-independence, Nehruvian generation, emergency generation, and new India generation. Okay. Now the pre-independent generation is all those born before 1929. The present age, that is 2014 elections, they would have been around 85 plus. Okay. This is the pre-independent generation born during the colonial rule, and they would have been 18 years old by 1947. Okay, that's when India got independent. They would have been around 18. And they were witness to very crucial events in the making of this nation, including the national movement, including partition, including riots, the making of the constitution, and also the initial working of this new Indian government. Now what distinguishes this generation from other generations is the anti-colonial movement. So the goals of the freedom movement will probably be the have a great impact during their primary years, okay, primary socialization values. The Nehruvian generation is the second generation that is born between 1930 and 1949. So they would have turned 21 between 51 and 1970, and currently they will be between 65 and 84 years old. Now this is probably India's first generation of modern India. The oldest among them will be the last link with India's national movement. And the formative years of this generation will be with the national movement, with the early government, the experience of the first election, the early experience with the constitution, India's first government, and of course the famous Congress system. Nehru's vision of a secular, socialist, democratic nation, as well as his worldview, probably inspired not only this generation but also generations that came after the Nehruvian generation. And this is what Tharoor says. So he says that this vision was probably the official vision until very recently, and it is this Nehruvian legacy which is now dividing leaders and generations in today's India. The third category is of those of the emergency generation born between 1950 and 73. They will be between 41 and 64 during the 2014 elections, and they are the product of post-independence politics. Their formative years saw the Congress dominance. They saw the problems with Congress dominance. They saw how the opposition was attacking the Congress. They saw the weaknesses of the Congress system. This particular generation saw 2 contradictory pulls. One, it felt or faced the rising aspirations as a result of the social and economic change that had happened in India. On the other hand, they also saw there was a legitimacy crisis for the system there. That is, it was not able to live up to the standards that it set for itself, whereas independence promised economic security and upward mobility. But within a decade or so, we found that this was not necessarily happening. So this gap between expectations and actual delivery of benefits leads to discontent, and this is that generation which is experienced that discontent, and not surprisingly you have emergency and this. Now there are two distinct phases in this movement. That if the national movement sort of stressed on democracy and national unity, etc. in the first thing, there was also emphasis on high principles of morality and ethics in public life. Now it is this generation which then talks of it, or at least the youth of this generation will be witness to the JP movement and so on during this particular phase. So during this particular phase, non-Congress parties during this particular phase are especially targeting the youth. Okay? And they are basically trying to say that we are trying to recover the real essence of the freedom movement. The last generation, that is New India, is born after 1974. And their formative years coincide with a great transformation that is taking place in India. The Congress actually learns to lose. I'm using Rudolph's phrase here. Until then it was a very reluctant loser. So you have had coalition government subsequently. This is a period in which India sees tremendous economic prosperity. We move from a planned economy to an open market economy. We also move very much closer to the United States. So this is the formative years of the post-1974, those born this thing. So this is the first generation which actually has widespread access to education and health facilities. Market-led development, personal enrichment becomes one of the key preoccupations of this generation. So this generation is very confident of itself, it's outward looking, it's also impatient with idealism of the old. Now it is a period in which also India's relationship with the West increases, especially the United States. So I believe these are the four generations that we have in India today, and these formative events which I have discussed, I believe influence their voting choices. And I want to show that how today's political parties and how connect these generations with their vote choice. Okay? So the thesis in the literature on party politics basically says that when they talk of impressionable years being influencing the youth, they basically say that the party which is doing very well, which is at the height of its power, is what is likely to impact the youth. Okay, so the party that is dominant is what the youth are likely to be attracted to. I differ from this and I move away from this particular hypothesis, because I think the young are not simply influenced by the most active and successful. I think we need to look at the opposition as well, at least in the Indian context, for the peculiar reason where you need to look at that the received literature basically assumes that you have a competitive party system. In India, what you have is not full competition, because I believe competition doesn't come immediately when you have the first election. Competition comes over a period of time. Once political parties learn to work the system, that's only when competition comes. So you had the famous Congress system, or the one-party dominant system, where the Congress, because of its first mover advantage, was able to have an advantage over the opposition. Now, Kothari would actually argue that this Congress system was not a mechanical one-party dominance. The Congress actually had a foot in both camps, both in government and in opposition. Okay, it was an agent of critique, it was an agent of change, it was a voice of dissent also. So this made the opposition very difficult task for the opposition, and therefore Kothari would call the opposition basically as parties of pressure, which are basically trying to influence the factions at the margins. So Kothari himself would then finally say that the form and substance of politics in India is very different from other parts of the world. Now, two early political scientists who study the Congress at this particular point of time will also say that why we need to look beyond the Congress. Myron Lehner, for instance, would say that the opposition parties at that particular point of time actually attract the youth. Okay, the educated unemployed youth, he says, that become the hunting ground for the opposition political parties. Similarly, Kochanak would say that the Congress actually failed to attract votes from those for whom independence was just a fact of history, rather than a matter of personal involvement. So he would then say, if you look at families, the older people voted for the Congress, where the young looked towards the opposition. Now, my point here is that the youth in a system where you have this, where the Congress dominated, are more attracted to new ideas that are coming up rather than the more successful political party that was in place. Now I use what the National Election Surveys from 1996. So I created a mega data set from 1996 to 2014. I can't show you the details here. So what I use a statistical measure called odds ratio, which actually help us estimate how much different generations vote for a particular party, and then compare it with what the odds would be for the total population as a whole. So if you, so what we get here, and we get a very okay. Now I have my four political parties which I use for this particular analysis, and these are, first I look at the Congress party. Then I have the BJP, which I keep separately. The Congress and the BJP is separate. Then I have two other categories of political parties. One is the classical opposition parties, which came up immediately after independence. That is during the height of the Congress movement. Now these include, for example, almost the oldest and active surviving parties in India, like the CPM, the CPI, the RSP. These are what is called the left bloc. You also have state-based parties like the Shiromani Akali Dal, the National Conference, the DMK, etc. Now this set of parties, I club them together because I believe these categories are different from parties of the recent vintage. Okay. Now what distinguishes these parties from new opposition parties or new parties that have come up later is that these parties have a well defined programmatic critique of the Congress and its policies during that particular point of time. So they were critical of the centrist model of development of the Congress. They were concerned with issues of center-state relations and the development process being privileging particular states or particular groups. The fourth category of parties which I have is the new opposition parties, which are formed between 1980s onwards. So this includes parties like the Bahujan Samaj Party, the National Congress Party, and the whole Janata Dal group of parties, and of course the MDMK, PMK, etc. Now these are parties which are actually broken away from the main parties, either the classical opposition parties or from the Congress itself. However, these leaders actually don't wait for a long time. So they move out from the Congress or from these parties in their prime. So they are able to actually, when they attract voters of their particular age or their particular group. Okay, that's what we will see in the data. Now these parties do not have any clear ideological thing as the classical opposition parties, and they are basically limited to specific groups. And my final group of parties is what the new parties category, which is formed post-Congress polity. This century most of them have formed. They are basically linked to particular individuals, they are tied to particular states, and they appeal to particular groups. Okay, they too do not have any distinctive programmatic agenda. Now this is my final point. When we look at the odds ratios for how the parties vote, you find very clear division between distinctive generations. The Congress, not surprisingly, gets the bulk of its votes from pre-independence and from the Nehruvian generation. The classical opposition parties gets their vote from the emergency generation. The BJP gets its vote from the new generation. Okay. Now, what is interesting over here is especially the Congress party, that even when the Congress gets its lowest vote share in 2014, the Nehruvian generation gives it everything. It is this generation that is steadily with the Congress. Okay? And similar is the case with the emergency generation. They are with all those classical opposition parties which come up at that point of time. And New India is with the BJP. Okay, now what does this hold for? Okay, there's another interesting thing, that one would also expect that in different generations, when it comes to say caste, etc., we will find say the young voting very differently from the older generation. But this is not true in the case of India. You find the young in the same generation vote as the older. So this is something which I don't have an explanation, but needs to be looked at closely. Now what is the significance of this is that one, since I said that this particular young generation is going to be here, is going to form a bulk of India's population in the long time, and they are going to live longer than previous generations. So the BJP is here to stay for some time. If we go by this data, that it's going to be here for some time, because it has got the youth, which is this thing. All other generations are slowly going to go away. Okay, so there has to be something there to actually capture this youth. You need to come with an alternate there, and we also know that being in power alone is not going to be attractive to the youth. You need to build it outside of this thing. So there is still hope on the horizon for parties if they want to sing. You need to be active and in opposition if you want to capture the youth vote. And then this particular, so second point that this paper would do is that I think it contributes to comparative parties literature in the sense that you need to look at parties not merely in government. You also need to look at parties and movements in the opposition to understand how political parties can capture youth and other this thing. So I conclude that I think there is a clear generational connect between political parties and different time periods in which they evolved and their connection with the voting.